Well, hello, folks. I'm Joe Wesley, and
Lizzy, Gabor here. Good morning.
how are you doing? Thank you for joining us. For those of us who are seeing us for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're visiting. For those who are visiting us again, thank you for coming back. Now, we have to do a commercial break to keep this as a business syndrome. We do ask, you can look at us either now live or on the replay through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. We do ask when you look at us through YouTube, please sign in because we want you to be able to leave comments, to ask questions, more importantly, or as important, to share us with other people, your friends. We want your feedback. We need it to help it be better for you as it becomes better for us also. For those of you who are seeing us for the first time, what we're doing is I'm a left brain kind of guy, like Dr. Spock in Star Trek. And Lizzy's the right brain, touchy-feely mindfulness persona. And I'm not getting it. However, what connects me to her, well, actually I do. My wife is kind of like that also. But in terms of my business, I stick to the facts, tell me what has to be, and that's all there is to it. But what draws me to Lizzy is she talks about wellness, she talks about health, she talks about success. Those are words that click in my head. So I'm trying to understand how her right brain can say such words like that make sense to me. So that's why we're having this dialogue back and forth. Now, we are doing micro series, topics per month. Please give us suggestions. And the month of February is boundaries, is established by Lizzy. And I get the concept, but I have a question, obviously. I remember years ago, my wife and I were traveling, and we stopped at a restaurant somewhere in the southern part of the country. And it was a first time experience for us. When we got the bill, the tip was already included. And it was now for groups. I get that because the ladies or the guys work very hard to serve your table, and I think there should be a minimum tip for that. I don't argue that, but it was the two of us, and I think it said 18%, which kind of annoyed me because it didn't give me the freedom to make a choice. They had. I'm being told, I guess, a boundary format of expectation from their part. So I knew arguing it wasn't going to make any value. So I went to the lady at the checkout station. I says, gee, I see that you have here an 18% gratuity already included. Like, to me, what's the incentive to do better or worse or not in serving? She says, yes, that's our policy. And I said, that's too bad. And she asked, what do you mean? I was going to give 20% tip. But no, you can do that. No, no, no. My boundary, since you said 18%, I'm going to stay with 18%. So the challenge here is boundaries. Are they a containment or a cage? So I'm going to sit back and listen on this one.
That's a great example. But again, it's you have even they have a policy. Actually understand their policy because it protects their staff from getting stiffed, which I think sometimes happens way too often. Being a former waitress,
Mm-hmm.
um, I also think that you gave your power away. If you still wanted to give the 20%, you had every right and every ability to do so. So you put yourself into that cage of saying, okay, if that's all what it is, that's that but there was not a limit. That was a minimum.
Well, actually, I was using reverse psychology. I was saying to the restaurant, because you've set boundaries on what the tip would be, you've eliminated, from my perspective, there's a disincentive to give you more since you're so clear in the 18%. Now, they said 18% or more, it would have given them some leeway, but their conditions were very clear. So no, I self-imposed boundaries because it was a reaction to the boundaries they'd imposed on me.
Well,
S-
again, that is actually, again, that's so interesting because that is exactly how you saw it, And
mhm.
if I would have seen the same thing, I would have thought the restaurant's protecting their employees, and
Hmm.
I can still give them an extra $10.
Right.
And I would usually if they gave me good service,
Fair.
it would still be based on what kind of service I got. But I think that you put that self-imposed boundary on yourself because you took it very literally, and I think that's the part that it can get us into trouble when we see these things as hard, fast, things,
Well,
when actually most things we have some more choice in things than we think we do. A lot of
well,
times. A lot of times. Not all.
this is I hear what you're saying, but I kind of disagree. Aren't boundaries self-imposed? Rephrase that. Boundaries, are they external to us or internal from us? Maybe that's another discussion later in the week. That if I understand, if people are pressing on me more than it's more beneficial to me, I can say, whoa, back off a little bit. I need some space.
Mm-hmm.
I get that boundary phenomena. That is a condition I imposed.
Mm-hmm.
I could have gone with it. I could say, give me more. I'm not yet saturated. I got a choice, but I made a determination. So my point is that the restaurant, based on their condition, I chose to react in a similar manner. My choice, their choice. So I wanted to let them, as a tease, let them know, well, because you've imposed this condition, I'm imposing my condition. So as a result, in essence, by my choice, you've denied yourself more monies possibly than you might have gotten otherwise in a tip side. Now, so when I said I was going to give you more, she's very open to that. If I said I want to give you less, oh, no, that's our policy. You can't have it both ways. That's kind of how I look at it. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, but it's very, I find it very, a little bit limiting again, because
That's my point. It is limiting.
It's limited. Your way of taking their policy is limiting. Your perspective on it is like you took it as this is a clear cut, 18% and no more. But I don't see it that way. So we also like interpret that. We all interpret.
I hear that. Let me give you a different example.
Give me a different example.
At one point, I was a practicing physician. And a salesman came to my office and brought a younger guy. He might have been in his early 60s. A younger guy might have been in early 20s. So this was certainly a learning curve for the kid. And he wanted to sell me a package that I said, first contact, I says, well, who's your referral? Well, I can't give you that information because that's confidential. I understand his boundary. I said, well, he showed me lots of pictures and images where they've worked primarily with hospitals as a technique. Now they're going to provide the service to doctors also. I said, okay, but do you have other doctor examples? You showed me hospital examples. Do you have doctor examples that you can share with me? No, that's confidential. For some reason, the hospital version was not confidential, but he's entitled to set his boundaries. So at some point after listening 5-10 minutes, I says, I'm not interested. He says, well, Doc, what if, now that was my boundary, I'm not interested. He says, Doc, well, what if I would offer you 10% discount? I'm not interested. Well, Doc, what if I offer you a bonus package on top of that? Another boundary. I'm not interested. He kept persisting through my boundaries I have established. So finally I said to him, I tell you what, you seem to be very sincere in what you're saying, and I get that. And I might be willing to give you a choice without referrals, references, things of that nature. And you're so clear this program would be successful for my business. Why don't we do it this way? Rather than pay you all the money up front, I'll pay you installments. 30% now, 30% halfway through, and then 30% toward the end of the program. No threat to you because you're basically guaranteeing me success. And his comment was, no, we don't do it that way. This is a business. He set a boundary. So I said to him, why is it when I say no, it's negotiable, and you say no, it's absolute? So is why my boundary different from your boundary? Self-imposed on either side.
Yeah, no, that's true. We find ourselves with a lot of times with people who try to push our boundaries, yet they're very firm in their own boundaries. They'll want you to do something that they would never do. And that's where, you have to be really careful sometimes with people, because they'll try to talk you into something that they actually wouldn't agree to for themselves. And we have to be, we have to stand up for ourselves. Again, we have to be firm in our beliefs. And if you didn't feel that he was meeting you halfway, you did the right thing by saying, then I'm not willing to work with somebody like that. that's actually, I think very smart.
I hear that. Again, it comes back to me a containment or a cage. That if I'm setting boundaries, which I understand, it's a sliding scale. It just hit me the concept here, and this is what I'm asking of you. First off, how does one, maybe in the next talk, how does one develop the mettle to develop boundaries? I can see people being concerned. I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yes.
I'm trying to be nice. I want to accommodate. Could you help me out on that line of
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah, those are all valid things that people fear conflict, people want to accommodate, people want to feel belonging, all that stuff. So the things, I usually practice, and I went through this myself because I was someone who for a long time was overwhelmed and exhausted because I said yes to everything and I wanted to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But so things I do with people to start off is really to just take a moment to think of, pause for a second, like, and I forget who said this, but like, be slow with your yeses and fast with your nos, but
Mm-hmm.
and practice saying no to small things, first before you start saying no to some big things that you feel like you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, really stopping and breathing and just taking a moment, to assess whether you want to say yes or you want to say no. And
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel in your body? Would saying yes make you all of a sudden you start feeling anxious and over, because you agreed to do this, that, or the other thing? And or does the yes feel like you're excited? Then it's a solid yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love, and the advanced version is, don't do it unless it's like a hell yes.
Well, that's a good point. Now, I'm going to slide a little bit to Lizzie's side in this discussion. When I first met my wife, and we've been married about 30 years, she grew up in a patriarch environment.
Mhm.
And so the ladies, by
We're
custom,
still living in a patriarch environment.
okay, fair. That's a good point. Now, see, that's maybe the
Yeah,
second time in a year we've agreed with something Lizzie has said.
yes,
So
yeah.
let's not get away with that too much.
Unfortunately, but we were moving. We're moving
I
in.
hear that. Good point, well made. And that's not having your perspective. I missed that point. So my apologies to you on that, in all sincerity. That being said, my wife is really she was. She's still a nice person. I gotta say that. She's a nice person. And she was accommodating to everything I had asked of her. As nice as it was, it made me nervous.
Mhm.
Because I had in my mind, because she would hardly ever say no. Yes, accommodate. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll help you with that. And it occurred to me that it was like the risk of a cooker building up pressure. And all of a sudden, one morning, I feel a nudge in my shoulder, and as I open my eyes up, I see this hot oil pouring in my face. I don't want that over my head. So I worked very hard to get her to stand firm, to stand her ground, to stand for what she believes in. And
Yeah.
at one point, she verbally swung on me in a very aggressive manner, and I stepped back laughing. I said, "Fantastic." She looked at me surprised. So, what's this about? I said, you can express your self value, you can express your boundaries, and I'm still living. So, this is a good thing.
It's a
So,
good thing, right? We want to enable our partners to be authentic and honest about, about their boundaries and their yeses and nos. You don't want to do, even though you were afraid for your life, you didn't want to.
yeah.
Who wants to be with a doormat?
Hmm.
Who doesn't have any, kind of knowing and strength in themselves about, what they want and what they don't want. So I think it's much more sexy and much more attractive to be someone who's confident and knows kind of what their boundaries are, personal, external, internal, and all the others.
Fair enough. Maybe the next sequence we'll talk more about how does one start those steps, because again my thing is easy enough said, but I can't find the light switch in the dark room. So
No, and I think also they're being a sensitive person, like your wife, like your wife. It's like you also have to kind of weigh, like, how bad are you going to feel if you don't do the thing for the someone, So there's a lot of things that play into it.
well, that's assuming a lot in terms of value on both sides of the coin. I believe, and you'll emphasize this one way or the other, that the issue of setting boundaries, certainly for an adult. Now, adults set boundaries for kids. That's a different
That's true.
format.
That's why we learn it in childhood. We learn how to, like,
And jail wardens set boundaries for the criminals. I get that. But at some point in a society where you're involved, I don't assume some people want doormats, and that's their call whether I agree with it or not. The challenge is, the question is, do you choose to be a doormat? And if the answer is no, or what do you gain being a doormat? In fact, that might be a topic. What do you gain by being a doormat? And does it really help you?
No, it does not. I can
Okay,
answer.
I get that conceptually. I'm not saying it's positive, but it's a counterpoint to think, no, it's not healthy to be a doormat. Then why am I still doing it? It kind of forces that question. And if I
Well, because again, it might be all you know because you were kind of conditioned to be that way, and so that's.
exactly,
But again, do I ever, do I? If for it's not great for the doorman. It's not great for the person who is asking everything of the doormat. It's not good for either party, really. The bottom line.
I won't argue that. But if I were the doormat, I really don't care if you like it's great for you or not. It's what we hear is what's best for me. And so maybe we'll discuss that also, because I'm certainly new at the back and forth concept. But I do believe that for people who don't have this intrinsic skills, who weren't brought up to stand up for themselves, folks, I'm sure between now and the end of February, we'll talk about what baby steps one can take before you have the opportunity to involve Lizzy directly in taking you not just baby steps, but leaps and bounds to undoormat yourself, perhaps, as a concept. Any final words before we go home?
It's one of my favorite things to do is to help somebody really stand in their own power and put themselves first, because we have to put ourselves first. If we don't put ourselves first, no one's going to put.
I hear that. I think some people might worry about, does it sound selfish or not? And so again, I think there's a gradient, a sliding scale of how that works. I had a patient once who, I guess I'll finalize this. I don't mean to do this in this manner, but she had a diagnosis newly through me in my care, and her family was pushing her on this and this and that and that and this and that. And she's concerned in not taking the treatment because she didn't have time for it, because she had to address the husband and the kids and the job. I says, look, boundaries. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be in a position of taking care of other people. So that might sound selfish, but it's a necessary selfishness, because if you don't take care of number one, you can't do much value for anybody else around you.
I mean, you can't serve anybody from an empty, sick vessel, So again, the oxygen mask metaphor is always something that I know it's cliche, but I really believe it very much, that we have to be, we have to have a strong foundation in order to, be able to give to others. Which is what we're also to do, really.
I get that.
First, we got to fill ourselves up.
Fair enough. Got to take those baby steps initially, certainly. You want to finish out with some music for us here? Thanks for joining us, folks. We appreciate it.
Well, let's do it. I love it. This is a perfect song. Freedom, freedom.
Very nice. So long, folks. Stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Please share. Please join. Please ask questions.
Peace and grace, guys. Love you. Love to everybody.